and welcome. We're in the nation's capital for the final day of racing in the Tour d'Azerbaijan, the fifth stage. It's the circuit race around Baku. Another 144 kilometers of racing on what's been an epic, highly entertaining, very enjoyable week of stage racing in the Caucasus. Yesterday, well, we saw a wonderful piece of opportunistic late solo burst for glory from the early breakaway as Turek from Cycling Academy, the Israeli squad with the Czech rider, surviving to take a famous victory. Overall race leader Primož Roglič, as he has been since stage 2, in command of the blue leader's jersey. Heading into this, the finals stage, he's got a 34-second advantage over 3 riders. Jasper Ukkelen, Maciej Murgeli, his former teammate, and Chris Horner, most famous man in the race. Grand Tour winner a couple of years ago, of course, and Josh Edmondson sitting nicely placed at 3 minutes and 49 seconds. I wonder if there's any chance for him in this, the final stage. It's a circuit race, 8 laps of a 12.8 kilometer circuit, 3 laps then of a slightly extended 13.8 kilometer circuit, substantially the same circuit with just a little bit of extra running. And then it all concludes on Freedom Square at the end of those 11 laps. Taking in the old city through the new development out into the suburbs, and there is a climb on the route. 3 classified climbs, but they've got to go up the climb, well, 11 times. A little leg stretcher of a 7% climb. And there is the profile of the day's action. It's a circuit, so they've got to keep going up and down that hill, and that is going to really test them towards the back end of today's stage. They've had a week of racing. Temperatures and humidity and indeed wind speeds pretty much identical to those we have encountered during the week. Great conditions for racing. Primož Roglič looking very relaxed, isn't he? Former ski jumper of some note, represented Slovenia in the Winter Olympics. Interesting talent transfer for him. And perhaps talent transfer for some of the riders looking for a career beyond the bike as photographers. In the green jersey, already a stage winner, Marco Kump, ex-Tinkoff Saxo, and of course teammate to the overall race leader Primož Roglič. The riders waved off at the beginning of today's stage to rapturous appreciation from the large and appreciative crowd gathered in the city centre at Freedom Square, and that's where they'll sprint for the line at the end of this, the 4th edition of the Tour of Azerbaijan in its current incarnation. No surprise, things got kicked off nice and early. Greek national squad decimated. This week's been really tough for them. Still just, well, now 3 riders remaining and trying to get into the action early on. Eventually a break did establish itself out front. Took a little while for it to happen, but eventually Alexander Evtushenko of the Resvelo squad in the red at the back was joined by Griffin Easter, who was in the breakaway yesterday, finished 4th, the Airgas Safeway rider. And Ido Zilberstein of the Cycling Academy team, who of course took that stage victory yesterday, courtesy of Daniel Turek. As we survey the scene over the wonderful infrastructure improvements that have been made in this country over the last few years, ahead of, well, many anticipated big events that are coming to the nation. They've got Formula 1 racing coming next year. Interim sprints being taken by Griffin Easter. 3 of those along the way at the finish line. Final one with 67 kilometers to go. That's of little consequence, really. Rush sprint competition, though, always a source of entertainment, but not really a sort of a sidebar to the main activity, which is to see whether anyone can unseat Primož Roglič from the head of affairs. There's the lead group. Evtushenko from Russia, Zilberstein, and Griffin Easter, who just manages to grab a bottle in the Collectum Musette. It is for Evtushenko in the feed zone. There is a chaser behind. Elchin Azadov from the national team, Synergy Baku Cycling Project. He's the Azeri National Road Race Champion, 3 times an individual time trial champion of Azerbaijan. And he has got a bit of a job to do because he's got over 3 minutes of a gap to close between himself and those 3 riders up front. The main group, 6 minutes in arrears. The last time we heard, 3.5 minutes it is to Azadov, as he pushes to get on terms. Alongside me, as he has been all week, surveying the scene as we conclude on what could well be a testing day for the GC contenders. They've got lots of hills, relatively short, but they'll really start to test the legs as they come to the back end of affairs. Magnus Backstedt is with me. If you want to get in touch, it's at Maggie_PR, hashtag Home of Cycling. I'm on at DQ Sport. And Magnus, looks on paper to be not such a difficult hill, but they've got to get over it 11 times.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, it's still 7.5%, so it's certainly not an easy hill to get up. 1.5 kilometers, and you've got to do it, like you said, 11 times. So it's likely to be quite a tough day out there for everyone. And I think also, you know, for the general classification riders, that, you know, it's the final day for them to really try and upset Roglic in the leader's jersey. So it's likely to be raced pretty hard.
Well, that's the situation in the main pack. 6 minutes in arrears from the group of 3 riders up front, and about 2.5 minutes to Azadov of Hedin, and have come away with with 2 great stage wins. There's the National Olympic Stadium, just completed in March, and that will play host to the first European Games of the Olympic Association. Azerbaijan and Baku honoured to have been awarded that very prestigious event. And the infrastructure just in the process of being completed. The National Gymnastics Arena, an imposing and impressive sight. 4 years in construction. There's the Athletes' Village, and they'll all be assembling within the next couple of weeks. So we're just hearing that Elchin Azadov is not really making any inroads into the group ahead, so the gap is extending. It's now getting closer to 4 minutes. 3 minutes and 56. We're just hearing, so it's a tough day out for Azadov, and it'll be interesting to see whether Peter Koenig can get on terms. No sign of any major bullets being fired in the main peloton at the moment, Magnus.
No, I think it's too early in the stage to really press on and try and attack. Certainly attack the leader. You know, he's still got a very strong team around him, so it's just a question of letting this settle in and you know, let the teams ride on the front for as much as possible, and let's see what we get to.
See what we get to. Just got a side of the whiteboard there, giving us the information that man from Drapac has about 45 seconds on the main group behind Peter Koenig, and we see other riders starting to clip off. So lack of adventure, I suppose, from the main contenders at the moment means that other riders are being encouraged to try their luck off the front. Groups of 1 and 2 and 3, and there you have first sight as they go through the finish line. This is the Adria Mobile squad, no surprise there. The overall race leader, they're controlling the tempo on the front of the group, not panicking at this stage, utterly relaxed about the composition of those riders up front, and indeed the riders on the front have just extended their advantage. 6:26 we're hearing, so another almost half a minute put into their lead in the last few kilometers. Evtushenko sitting 105th overall, over half an hour down. Griffin Easter in the break yesterday, but he's almost 21 minutes in arrears. He's the best placed of the 3 riders up front. Ido Silberstein 87th overall at 24 minutes and 56 seconds heading into today's stage. There's Silberstein there, of the Cycling Academy team from Israel, the first ever professional Israeli squad. They've been given some patronage by Peter Sagan. The Slovakian rider has lent his name to this.
It even says that it's powered by Peter Sagan.
Power. If you've got that sort of power, then Well, you got to come up with wins, and it was a great win yesterday from Daniel Turek. He'd been in the break for a couple of days in a row and managed to work the Oracle. Griffin Easter's trying it today.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see a team like this just getting out there and really racing hard and taking all the opportunities available to them. So you know, I really like when a team of young riders and a development academy really just go out there and race hard rather than just sitting around waiting for something to happen. So yeah, hats off to them.
Yeah, it's important for the new teams, I suppose, to be out there, seen to be making the race.
Yeah, but it's also every day that you spend in a break is a day that you really are making yourself an awful lot stronger. You can train as hard as you want, but until you really get into the race and you're trying to actually race your bike rather than carrying the number around for a few kilometers every day, that's when you're making the big gains and the big move forward. And that's why I always think for younger athletes, youth riders and so on, race your bike as hard as you can and worry about the results later. Yes, if you win, that's great, but it's not the primary sort of target when you're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. That comes at a later stage as far as I'm concerned. So if you can race your bike hard and win every so often or have a good result every so often, that's fantastic. But I think you should be more pleased with how you ride after a race than what the number says in front of your position. Yeah,
you can be too obsessed with the results. And do you think riders are inclined to be a bit overcoached when they're younger?
Yeah, potentially overcoached. Obviously, you got to teach the younger riders how to race and what to do and not to do and so on. But I think the sort of big focus should be on making teaching the riders to race their bikes hard and to take opportunities, create opportunities, and not just talk about sort of, well, ride smart, be the clever one, to sit in the wheels all the time and then wait around, don't do anything on the front because it'll hurt you, and then sprint at the end of the day. It just doesn't bring anything to the rider. All you're doing is making that rider slightly less strong for every race that goes on. I think an open, hard bike race for youth riders is the way forward, because that's going to develop them for later on in their career.
And that's what they want to do. I mean, your average youth rider, all he wants to do is attack. I mean, the only thing they can see. So, don't coach them out of them too early.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
It's great to see Griffin Easter in the break again today. 23 years of age, man from California. Second year on the team. Just 7 race days at UCI level. There he is there. And he really suffered yesterday. Great 4th place finish for him. He's a student at Fort Lewis College in Durango in Colorado. So it's plenty of altitude training in there. And he's actually the reigning collegiate national champion of the USA. So developing rider. And what it's going to mean to him to have a rider of the caliber of Chris Horner on his squad. Plenty of opportunity for him to learn. Turkish Torku Sekişspor squad on the front of the main peloton, making their presence felt. The main group winching themselves up this climb, 7 and a bit %. First time up it won't have felt like much, but the 11th time up it, you can be sure things are going to feel a little bit difficult. And Russ Velo showing plenty of aggression today. They've got Evtushenko in the break, the 21-year-old. Plenty of evidence from them in terms of in the last couple of days they've been to the fore in trying to set things up for a finishing sprint. Hasn't really worked out in terms of coming up with the big result. But Brzezfala will Sergei Honchar directing operations. Well, they won't lack for motivation, will they?
No, definitely not. But Siesta got a rider up the road. It's interesting that they sent another man on the attack here on the climb as well. So interesting tactics, that.
Yes, when they've got a man up the road, yeah, he'd certainly want to get a gap on the bunch. He doesn't want to provide a carrot to anyone who might be minded to chase him down, because that's only going to mean that the breakaway group, the gap will be closing to them. Looks like there's another one coming too. So Russ Velo have been given a free rein today, or is that a drop-back rider?
Well, it could be a drop-back rider. It's reasonably similar jerseys that they have, but yeah, I'm not quite following their thought process on that one. Maybe they're hoping that you know, they're going to be able to send one guy up the road and then send another man up there and then create a duo that can really you know, work hard together.
Well, they're shaking things up. That's, I think, probably the main ambition. Just riding past the flame towers, the new landmark of Baku, symbols of the eternal fire that marks the history of Azerbaijan, as we see a nice little group starting to assemble with a distance to the pack behind. These the three riders up front, 6.5 minutes their advantage at the moment. Nestling at the back, Ido Silberstein, 21-year-old Israeli, just 171 centimeters and 57 kilograms, so the hills would suit him better. You would imagine the man on the front just moving off, Rusvelo rider Evtushenko. He's twice national under-23 individual time trial champion of Russia, and third in the European Championships at under-23 level. The instructions bellowed at the group there. Flick of the elbow from Griffin Easter as he calls Ido Silberstein through. Now we've got group assembling off the front, so Russ Velo in the main break of the day, and two Russ Velo riders have made it into this nice little group of 5.
Yeah, and there's another Cycling Academy rider in there as well.
So interesting pattern, and interesting to see that teams that have riders in the break have decided to head off up the road from the main group. So this could change things a little bit. Adria Mobil seem content to play a watching brief. They're not going to burn all their matches too early. They're not concerned about these riders up front. They're not in any way a threat for the overall, so it could be an opportunity for breakaway contenders to take the victory 2 days in a row. 49 kilometers remaining inside the final 50k of the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan 2014. 2015 even, 4th edition of this. Evtushenko quite a bit bigger than his two breakaway companions, isn't he? And look at the way the bunch is really lined out now, so they're not hanging around. And we noticed last time up the hill that there were riders starting to drop off, so the pace is getting fairly busy now. With 50k to go, we're getting towards the business end of affairs, and these 5 riders up front haven't quite managed to make that 6. There's a drop back in there too, Russ Velos, one rider from Cycling Academy. There's that Synergy Baku represented at the back of the group. Also got the Rinkhoff Alvaritz cycling team from Austria. Clemens Frankauer's a superb second-place finish for them yesterday. Winner of On Post Ross in 2014, and coming up with another great result at continental level. The Austrian rider didn't get name-checked too often yesterday, but we'll try and make that right today, because that was a good ride by him. Just missing out on the win to Turek of Cycling Academy. And those 6 riders struggling to establish this one. We haven't heard much mention of Peter Cunning of Drapac of late, so I'm of a mind that perhaps he's been dragged back into the fold. Elchin Azadov had about 2.5 minutes advantage on the main group. He's in between the main group and the 3 riders at the front of the race, but not sure whether Azadov has been mopped up. I think he's probably still out there and struggling to try and get on terms. Might just be aided by these riders if they make it across to him. Doesn't look as if the main group are minded to let this group up the road.
No, I think that's potentially a bit of a dangerous group, and certainly too big a group to be able to control. And That's also why the guys at Adria Mobil have put a rider on the back of that group to try and sort of discourage them from working too hard and from actually pulling them away, because they know that they're dragging away an Adria rider who is potentially, you know, certainly for the stage, going to be very, very dangerous if he doesn't do any work at all.
Yep, those riders looking towards the potential for stage honours and won't welcome an interloper that's not willing to do his share of the work. Now that Rosvelo rider just slots in behind him. Is he thinking about trying to take him out the back? Do it that way. Marco Kump, much in evidence towards the front, as indeed is Primoz Roglic, who's sitting about fifth wheel at the moment, so he's alive to any dangers. Very comfortable in the group and sitting fifth, as you might expect from a rider who was so strong on the second day. It really was a very impressive performance, soloing clear on that final climb of the day, and then able to hold off the three chasers through the final 33 and a bit kilometers. So now the tempo is starting to rise as Evtushenko feels it a little bit. A big, strong man, but they've been out there for a while now. Griffin Easter, busy style of his, nonetheless effective, and clearly his powers of recovery are pretty impressive. All day in the break yesterday, fancied it again today, managed to get in there. So down the finishing straight on Freedom Square for one more lap. It's Griffin Easter that leads them across the line, followed by Ido Zilberstein. And Evtushenko nestling at the back, the Russian in the red kit. Rosvelo.
I'm feeling your energy now. We got some good energy here today.
So they're starting to chase hard behind, but the three riders up front still have a handy advantage. We're going to take a quick break. Back after these. In his home country, and just about hanging on in front of the group as they go through the feed zone. So comfortable acquisition of another bottle for him. As the tempo starts to rise in the main group, and Azadov is minded to just slot into third position there as they race towards another climb on this circuit. They've got a serious lump of about 1,500 meters at 7.5%, which has been testing the riders, thinning out the main group. Riders starting to go backwards. Few riders have been going forwards in the last little while. Still a pretty big bunch at the moment. That's going to thin out pretty soon, I can tell you. So we see Park Hotel Valkenburg on the front of the group, trying to put a bit of pressure on Adria Mobil. They've got the rider sitting second overall, Jesper Ukkelen, the Dutch rider. Three riders at 34 seconds from Primoz Roglic, the overall race leader for Adria Mobil. And the first of those on the GC sheet is Jesper Ukkelen, 24-year-old Dutchman, who perhaps fancies his chances of pulling a fast one up the hill very soon. Certainly got it lined out.
Well, someone's going to have to try something, otherwise Roglic is going to walk away with this one. So, you know, regardless of how you do it, you need to start making the race hard and hard enough so that you can attack the leader. Ideally, try and get rid of the leader's teammates in one way or another, and depending on how strong a team you have, obviously, if you're a team of really talented climbers, then you can put on the pressure. That's an interesting way of
yeah.
carrying your bike around.
Yeah, it might be easier to attach those wheels to a bike frame and cycle up this hill, but that's not that easy. It's easier said than done. These guys making it look easy up front. They've been doing it for a while now. Zilberstein sitting on the back. Metronomic pace being tapped out at the front by Evtushenko. Big guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he looks reasonably tall, actually, but can be a bit deceiving sometimes.
These things are relative, yeah. Big guy compared to me.
usually you can sort of tell how tall the rider is by the size of the head tube of the frame. and that's around about a 58 centimetre frame, so I'd say it's about 180. Yeah, 6 foot. Yeah.
I bet you're right. We should look it up. Yevtushenko, twice a national under-23 international time trial champion of Russia, and that wouldn't be an easy championship to win. So Park Hotel Valkenburg setting a good tempo, but now other teams starting to mass at the front. And interesting that Chris Horner's squad have gone to the front. Airgas Safeway cycling team, perhaps encouraged by the effort of the Park Hotel Valkenburg. Chris Horner's 4th on general classification, but he, like Öcalan of Park Hotel Valkenburg, is also 34 seconds back. Maciej Mugerli also at a deficit of 34 seconds. Those 3 riders, the ones with perhaps the biggest opportunity to get into that final blue leader's jersey. Those are the ones that Primož Roglič will be most concerned about. The walled city of Baku, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as it says, is the old town around which the new city has developed in recent years. 9.5 million, the population of Azerbaijan. This is actually the largest city on the Caspian Sea. It's 28 meters below sea level. It's the lowest lying national capital in the world. The largest city in the world below sea level. And as many as 2 million people of the national population of 9.5 million are based in and around Baku. So huge development in this nation, centered on the capital city, as we've seen in so many countries around the world. Ping An Shen really starting to struggle a bit at the back, the giant champion system pro cycling rider. That's the old city. Shirvanshah Palace, built in the 15th century. UNESCO World Heritage Site, as we've said. And with inside of those flame towers that represent new Azerbaijan. A nice shot to conclude that little beauty piece. Well, all Zilberstein can see at the moment is road going underneath him. He's stem watching, feeling it a little bit. Yevtushenko riding a bigger gear, rolling it around. Rusvello sponsored by Colnago. There's always been big association between Italian bike manufacturers and the Russian squads and the Russian riders that have come in back in the 80s, when Russians were riders from the former Soviet bloc were starting to make their presence felt in the world peloton. It was often with Italian teams.
Yeah, it certainly was, and I think that particular bike manufacturer's had a very, very long-lasting relationship with the Soviet Union, yeah. Russia, all of that part of the world. And you know, it's nice to see that they continued with that.
Yes, a bit of tradition there,
well,
bit of heritage.
It's got to be, you know, a good 20, 30 years now that they've been working together, I think.
Yeah, indeed, all of that. Indeed, before the Soviet bloc broke up, it was very often Colnago bikes that the riders from the USSR would ride. Team Tavira from Portugal on the front, starting to drill it. We've seen lots of activity from Team Tavira, haven't come up with the big results so far. But as they hit the hill one more time, Adria Mobil making their presence felt. Primož Roglič sitting 4th rider. So Tavira pushing on. Primož Roglič is there or thereabouts, sitting 4th wheel. It looks like Chris Horner, is it, moving up as well onto the wheel? Or is it one of his Airgas Safeway teammates? But Roglič, no doubt about it, the overall race leader. Looks very comfortable, looking around himself to see what riders are there. Martyrs Alley, commemorating the dead soldiers of the Battle of Baku in 1918.
Sorry.
And all the victims of the fight for freedom from the USSR in 1990.
Yeah, a bit of action starting to happen here with that is Chris Horner going on the on a bit of a move as well. So Roglič having to respond to that.
Wow, look at that for a time check. That tells you all you need to know about how tough it's been in the main bunch in the last 10K, because the gap has been slashed. They've taken 3 minutes. Almost half the advantage of the leaders up front has been erased in the last 10 or 12 kilometers. They'll be getting that sinking feeling. Zilberstein, Easter, and Evtushenko in line, doing what they can, but for how much longer? Josh Edmondson is just starting to show himself, and here comes the leader of the youth classification, Caesar. František Caesar has decided to try his luck off the front. Team Tavira alive to the danger. Adria Mobile behind, not of a mind to chase down every attack, but just keep turning the screw on the front and setting a tempo that makes it difficult for others to attack. And if those attackers don't have enough, then he'll be back pretty shortly. So František Caesar.
Yeah, and this is now creating a bit of pressure on the Adria Mobile riders, because it looked like they've been they still had 2 riders in there, well, very much near the front with Roglic as well, but with the riders going, it looks like, you know, they're reasonably dangerous for the general classification, which means that Adria all of a sudden are put in a position where they have to start riding, and it looks like Roglic though is just marking the one man, and that is Chris Horner, you know, which ultimately means that he all he's got to do is follow him, make sure he doesn't, like, that Chris doesn't get any kind of time gap on him, and let the team sort of sort out the rest of the peloton and make sure that they're all coming into towards the finish, you know, as much together as possible, or at least, you know, if it's anyone up the road, then let them be at, you know, 6, 7, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it might be.
So two subjects of focus for the Airgas Safeway fans today. One, they've got a rider in the break, Griffin Easter, but two, they've got an overall contender in the shape of Chris Horner, and Horner being marshalled by Primož Roglic, the overall race leader. František Caesar is sitting 7th overall, the Team Dukla Prague rider, wearing the purple jersey of the youth leader. There's the green jersey of the leader of the points classification, Marco Kump. Post Chain Reactions have had a pretty good week so far. There's Aidas Kropos alongside Marco Kump. Perhaps he'll be thinking about his opportunities in the finishing sprint if he lasts through to the finish. Still plenty of riders in that bunch.
And we've still got 3 times up this climb as well, and I think we haven't seen the real action start yet. The real big attacks on this climb haven't really started to happen. I'm waiting for Chris Horner to go out there and really turn up the heat a bit on that particular climb. You know, maybe even, you know, a couple of times to do the full climb, full gas.
When's the time to go? Is it the penultimate time in order to get the 34 seconds, or will the last time up do?
No, I think penultimate time is really where you need to make a big move. Ideally isolate Roglic with a couple of other riders as well, and then on the final lap just really try and distance yourself from him.
Three riders up front now, just 2 minutes and 50 seconds up the road, so another, what, 30-40 seconds slashed from their advantage since the last time check, which wasn't too long ago. So while they look like they're making good headway, the aggression in the bunch is starting to tell. On Post Chain Reactions on the left-hand side. Connor Dunn, who was fine 3rd yesterday, still has the legs to try and do a job for Josh Edmondson. Aidas Kropos as well, 9th in yesterday's stage, so well to the fore in the bunch sprint for 5th place. Benton Jones managing to win that one. Thought he'd won this stage, hadn't he? The Drapac rider from Australia. fine sprint effort. If Benton manages to hang on, he will certainly be one that Marco Kump will be having a look at. Kump is very much in evidence in that green jersey with the red shorts on the wheel of one of his Adria Mobil teammates. They've two options today. By far the more important is to protect the overall lead of Primož Roglic, but with that done, if that proves to be the case, you can be sure that they'll try and get organised inside the final few kilometres to look after Marco Kump for what could be a second stage win for him and a third stage win for the team of the week. But there's a lot to happen before that. These riders are being gathered back into the fold. Well, it's looking increasingly inevitable, isn't it? Evtushenko getting the drinks in. Zilberstein picks up a bottle. Main group has definitely been pared down a little bit on that last flurry of activity up the hill last time around.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think we're looking at... It has settled down a fraction now since we got to the top of the climb, so I think we're looking at around about 4-minute gap. And obviously the Park Hotel riders here are quite keen on keeping the pace going. So I wonder whether they got an idea of trying to attack on the final couple of hills, and don't know really why they would be riding so hard on the front on the flat in between, though. You'd be better off just you know, getting the whole team on the front, going up the climb instead, and really pressing on as much as you could there.
We haven't seen so much evidence of Jasper Ukkelen so far, but I don't doubt he's going to try his luck. There's been some discussion, of course, about the fact that Ukkelen is sitting second overall, even though he was beaten on that big mountain stage by Mathieu Mugerli and Chris Horner. Indeed, Mugerli has had several top three, at least two, hasn't he, this week, top three finishing positions. But Ukkelen on a combination of all of the finishing positions from the first four stages of the race, it's a lower total, so that's the way the rule works.
Yeah, I don't get that bit. You know, that's basically just telling you to sprint for 50th place in the peloton on a flat stage. If you're not a sprinter, or if you get messed up in the sprint, then you're still going for sprinting as hard as you can in the middle of a peloton, and that's just completely bonkers in my view. Go by the points system, so you can have a couple of good days, you can have a bad day, but you still, you know, the points classification is what would determine where the rider places if they're on equal time. It seems by far the more sensible way of doing it.
Yeah. That's not the way the rule is at the moment. Mugerli would certainly be sitting second overall if that was the case. He's fourth in the points competition as a result of his finishes to date. Now the gap is shrinking fast. Was 250. We've just heard in our ear that it's down to 240, so another 10 seconds gained in the last couple of kilometers. So they're really charging across the gap as Griffin Easter grabs as many gels as he possibly can. He's probably aware that the cars are going to be pulled out soon enough. Well, they have an advantage for a little while. They'll be there, but still they must be getting that sinking feeling as they come across the finish line.
Yeah, there's also the possibility of, you know, if they get caught, pass on a gel or two to Chris Horner. Makes life a bit easier when you got a rider passing it rather than picking it up from your Maseros when you're on the side of the road. And obviously you never know when you're going to get caught either, so it's inside the last 20k.
Breaker coming back, and they're starting to get excited up front. So they've got this difficult little climb as well as that 1500 meter 7.5% climb that they've already done 8 times, with another 3 to go. So plenty of opportunities now for the GC guys. They'll know all about that. They've been starting to turn the screw, wind it up a little bit, put the hurt on several of the other teams in there, and by extension perhaps just burn a couple of matches in amongst Adria Mobil. Look very calm and composed at the moment, do Adria Mobil. They've got plenty of riders to the fore, including Primož Roglic in the blue jersey, and the man on the front in the green jersey of points leader Marco Kump, already a stage winner this week and runaway leader in the points competition. Comp 6th yesterday, 2nd in the bunch sprint behind the 4 riders up front. 2nd the previous day after winning the bunch sprint behind Josh Edmondson. Pretty anonymous on stage 2, which was the big mountain stage that really cut so many riders out and massive time gaps throughout the bunch. And then, of course, Comp had taken the opening stage of the week's activities in emphatic style. Comp on the front as they head up this climb. Looks like Synergy Baku looking to get busy. Synergy Baku have the rider sitting 3rd overall, remember, Maciej Mugerli. Slovenian national road race champion, but with the Azerbaijan squad. Perhaps Synergy Baku looking to put a rider on the front and off the front.
Well, definitely putting a bit of pressure in on the peloton, although the thing with this is obviously to have a rider doing this kind of a job who's dangerous on the general classification. Should he, you know, get a bit too much time, at the moment it's not really causing any massive reaction.
Yeah, clearly Adrian Mogul not concerned about the quality of that rider in terms of damaging their overall prospects, so they're happy to let him go. Qinchen Lu, Champion Systems, another rider struggling at the back at the moment. Drakbak have put a rider on the front. Absolutely beautiful scene.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
A little bit arduous, and it's narrow, isn't it?
It is relatively narrow, but nice little back roads here that they're going up, and certainly hard enough with the cobblestones on there as well, and quite a relatively steep climb.
Yeah, it's a steep climb. No sign of any rain this week. Blue skies above. Balmy early summer weather for the riders. Perfect conditions for racing. And that cobble climb would be a different prospect if it was raining. That's not the case. So these 3 riders now starting to detach themselves from the peloton. Doesn't look like Keane is too keen on this one.
Wow, descending on cobblestones is an interesting thing to do, to say the least. It's
wet or dry.
Wet or dry. I mean, if it's wet, then it's potentially lethal, but even in the dry, it's difficult to get any kind of feel for what the bike is doing, how much grip you got underneath you, and how much, you know, brake you can actually put on without anything sort of happening.
Replay from the front a few moments ago. Marco Kump looking very comfortable on the front, and just one of his teammates goes down, and that's a little inconvenient. Looked like could that have been Chris Horner that was delayed, one of the Airgas Safeway riders, and that was an absolutely perfect illustration of what Magnus Bäckstedt was just telling us.
Too much brake, too much front brake going into that corner, and you get a bit of a bounce on the front wheel, and that's it. It washes out for you. So it is extremely difficult to cope with the cobblestones on a descent. You've got to keep your bike completely straight, and then brake as much as you can, and then let go of the brakes and then turn. That's the only real way that you're going to get around a cobble descent safely.
Right, you can't be braking and turning because it's just so easy to lock up on the cobbles.
I mean, braking and turning at any point is a silly thing to sort of get yourself into. I mean, if you're incredibly good at bike handling skills and you've got such good, really good feel for the brakes, and effectively you are a very, very seasoned bike rider, then you can start playing around with adjusting your speed through the corners, and obviously depending on whether you pull the front brake a little bit or whether you pull the back brake, you can effectively tweak the apex and sort of make the apex come back in a bit, or drift out a little bit. So if you pull the front brake, the bike washes away and he opens up and you actually drift a bit wider around the corner, and if you pull the back brake, then it actually tightens up the exit line a little bit. That's something that's
MotoGP stuff, isn't it?
That's MotoGP stuff.
Yeah.
That's way up there in terms of your bike handling skills, and it's, like I said, you are starting to play with. It's only a question of time before you do it wrong and you come down. So the general rule is brake in a straight line, let go of the brakes, bank the bike over, and turn through the corner.
Do it to the level you're comfortable at, and then don't find the limit by exceeding it, because you'll end up on the seat of your pants. So Griffin Easter, looks like it's all up for him. Struggled a bit on the descent from that climb in the Old Town. And now just two up front, it's Alexander Evtushenko of Rusvelo, who's really putting immense amount of pain into Ido Zilberstein. I'm not sure how much longer he can last, because Zilberstein looks over his shoulder to see if Griffin Easter is there. He's not. The gap has been pared down significantly, well under 2 minutes. Drapak showing plenty of ambition on what is now a much reduced peloton. Groups at 6 and 7. I'd say the group has been at least halved at the moment. Still plenty of riders desperately scrabbling to stay in contention, but one climb immediately followed by another. Well, those riders are feeling an awful lot of pain, but this is a pretty impressive job being done on the front.
Well, definitely the pace is going up in the peloton, and there's loads of riders now starting to feel this, and we're getting into the final couple of laps. And you know, it's also, if you're not up there on GC, you haven't got a possibility maybe of winning today's stage, then every time you're doing a circuit race like this, you're going past the showers, it's incredibly tempting to just turn back in there. If your team doesn't really, well, if you can't do anything for your team, you're just hanging on there, trying to get to the finish line. I know a lot of riders who are very tempted many times of just pulling the pin a couple of laps early.
So far away. Yes.
Exactly.
It's the evils of circuit racing. And of course, you know exactly what this hill is going to be like, because you've been up it so many times, and if you're really suffering, it's not like you can kid yourself and say, well, the next hill mightn't be so bad, or it might be a little bit further away. You know, you just know exactly what's waiting, and it just becomes like a water torture, only worse. So two riders up front. Evtushenko absolutely flying. Zilberstein doing a great job to stay with him. Just 21 years of age. First year on the team, first year in the existence of this, the first ever Israeli professional cycling team. And he's showcasing his ability very impressively. 7th on a stage of the Carpathian Couriers under-23 race already this year. 17th on GC there. So solid results for a young man on the squad, which has Peter Sagan as a patron. Silverstein's not going to be there for much longer. Look at the way Evtushenko's really powering away. Nothing held back now.
No, that's a TT man in full flight, and
oh, and he gets a flick of the elbow. Give me a hand. No. Well, look at that. Silverstein goes through, does what he can. He knows he has to for as long as he possibly can.
Well, that's
impressive.
It's never fun when you end up in that position. You're on the wheel of a guy taking a turn, and you're literally on the limit trying to hold his wheel, and all of a sudden he flicks his elbow and moves out and asks you to come through, and there's just...
And how much of an effort do you make when you come through? Because you're just waiting and waiting for this guy to come around you like a motorbike. Yeah, it's a tough one, but Silverstein is hanging on grimly, doing a great job. We just got a quick side on-post chain reaction, just starting to gather towards the front of the main bunch. Perhaps they have ambitions to launch Josh Edmondson, sitting 5th overall. Connor Dunn gave them a nice third place finish yesterday. It's bit and lump out there, isn't it? It's a little bit from Zilberstein, big lumps from Evtushenko. And now the Kazakh national team are getting involved off the front. Looks like Rusvelo and Drapak showing plenty of ambition as well. Little look over his shoulder for the rider in the sky blue of the Kazakh national squad. Hectic activity. So now this rider from the Kazakh national squad is pushing hard to get on terms. and doesn't look like they're able to get up to him too quickly. Adrian Mobil starting to put manners on the front of the bunch as he looks over his shoulder, feeling the pain. I'd love to get a number, know exactly who this is, because these riders, well, there's great strength and depth in the Kazakh national team. Their best placed rider, having said that, is 11th overall, Alexander Shushimov, 3 minutes and 56 seconds back. They've got another rider, Bizhkitov, 20th at 4:43, so a couple of good climbers in there. And the bunch behind, starting to mass across the road, giving you the indication perhaps that they're satisfied to let this rider have his moment of glory off the front. Another side of the flame towers that represent modern Baku, a nation whose wealth is founded on the vast reserves of oil and natural gas. Evtushenko saying, well, give me a dig when you can. Probably something like that. If you can, please do. Otherwise,
well, I think
it's all about me.
It was a question of let's keep working as hard as we can together and see how long we can stay out here for. And Evtushenko really looking very, very good on his bike.
Yeah, hooks the hands inside those Campagnolo brake levers and just locks himself into the powerhouse position of a man who is a time trialist by nature. That is Zemlyakov, 43rd overall, 11 minutes down. Sitting well on his bike, hanging out of the biggest gear he can possibly manage, not such a high cadence. He's absolutely flying along, and he's holding off a baying pack of riders. Inching closer to the finish line. I'm looking for an exact number of kilometers remaining, something in the order of about 30, I would imagine. It'll be just over 27 kilometers remaining when they hit the finish line next time around. It's a 13.8 kilometer circuit, so that's 27.6 kilometers remaining at the finish line next time round. And I feel confident that we're going to see an attack at some stage from Jesper Ökeland, sitting second overall. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday to Jesper. He's 25 years of age, the Dutch rider.
I'm sure he'd like to give himself a nice little birthday present there.
Well, look at the way Evtushenko puts about 5 bike lengths into Zilberstein there. It was just a lack of attention, really. The concentration must be so difficult for this rider. He's been under so much pressure, and now he needs to make an absolutely massive effort to get back into the wheel. He does it with impressive facility, actually.
Well, he does, but then he'll get onto the wheel, and Evtushenko will just flick his elbow and ask him to come through right as that happens. That's the worst bit. But
I've just made a bigger effort than you did.
It basically just messed up the apex of that corner, and that just goes to show how much time you can take out of someone if you got the line going right.
And you can get in touch on Twitter. We're here all day, as we have been all week. And it's at Maggie_PR. And DQ Sport for myself, hashtag home of cycling. Suzanne Wolf is with us today, as indeed green gold for me. I don't know much about Azerbaijan, but Baku looks to be a fascinating city. It is absolutely fascinating. I've been there, and it is a fast developing country, really at a rate of knots. Massive oil wealth and huge pride, of course. It's an independent nation since 1990. 2 minutes 10 to the main group behind, so the gap had come down under 2 minutes. Now it's extended, what, maybe 10-20 seconds inside the last few kilometers. A signal that hostilities have ceased for a little while in the main group is perhaps the fact that Zemlyakov of the Kazakh national squad is able to survive off the front for as long as he has. Powering along, 43rd overall, as I said, just under 11 minutes in arrears. 21 years of age. Second year on the team. Kazakh national squad, also titled Vino Forever. Vinokurov still very much a national hero in Kazakhstan. Second in the Asian Cycling Championships road race in 2014, Zelniakov, so super strong rider. Youth classification winner of the Tour of Philippines this year. 11th on GC and Tour of Taiwan. And probably most notably second in the national championship individual time trial of Kazakhstan in 2014. So comfortable enough riding on his own. So now just 27.5 kilometers remaining for these two riders up front. Zylberstein, who has the honor of leading the riders through on the penultimate occasion across the finish line. Well, it's actually third last time, isn't it, across the finish line? Yevtushenko takes it up on the front once more. And Zylberstein looked like he was really struggling to hang on, and certainly the big turns have been done by Yevtushenko, but he's hanging on there for quite a while. It'll be interesting to see just how strong he is up the hill next time round. Not so sure that won't come back to him a little bit. Now we have Griffin Easter, who's in between. He's unzipped his jersey, just trying to get a bit of warmth in there, or a bit of cool air. Almost a minute back. He's persevering. He's not just thinking, well, wait for the bunch, try and save a little bit of energy and see if I can last for a little while longer. It looks like he's still riding on. You gotta love that about him. He's absolutely trying his heart out. 2 days in a row. And now Zemliakov. Oops, needed a couple of bites of that one. Laid it over a little bit early, but well, the roads are very wide, huge boulevards here, and it's as safe a finish as you could possibly have in world cycling. I hope I'm not putting the mockers on them there, but it is, at least the roads are safe.
Well, the roads are wide enough. That doesn't necessarily mean they're safer. It just means that more riders can mass up on the shorter sort of space of road.
There's going to be a few coming into that final corner, aren't there?
Yeah.
Zelniakov hasn't really managed to open up a huge advantage over the main bunch chasing behind. 2 laps remaining for them. On-post chain reactions putting riders onto the front. Josh Edmondson, I think, is planning something coming up pretty soon. We're waiting for the fireworks to be lit. Well, they're moving into the center, and the man is about to strike the match, I think, for the fireworks. To lift out over the Baku skyline any moment now. Fireworks during the day, the very idea. Zylberstein hanging on. It's Yevtushenko that's going to do the work up this hill. The smaller man not enjoying this cobble climb. It's just about short enough for a man of the power that Yevtushenko is able to generate to really put the hurt on his breakaway companion. Oops. And it looks easy, doesn't it? But those cobbles really... Oh, and a little bit
That's
of
the same corner as we just had the crash on earlier. It looks like there's a bit of something going on.
Yeah, lack of grip there. Just a couple of shiny cobbles that catching the riders out. Quite the grip level they'd like, and especially when you're quite certain about the turn-in point. And there's a wonderful graphic illustration. It's not quite the cobbles that you'll get in Flanders, but they're tough enough. Zylberstein looks like he hasn't planned anything in his life beyond getting to the top of this hill on the wheel of Yevtushenko.
Some nice good gaps between those cobbles as well, so it'll be proper nice and bouncy for them.
Yeah. Very pleasant, as long as you don't have to cycle up them. Evtushenko looks like the bike is moving around a little bit underneath him. Extra effort there from Silverstein, just a little extra ramp, not a couple of percent added to the gradient. And here the main bunch about to arrive at the same hill into the Old Town. On post chain reactions on the front. They've got Josh Edmondson sitting 5th overall, 3 minutes and 49 seconds in arrears. Here is Klemnikov. He's picked up Griffin Easter from the Zelmnikov. It is that's picked up Griffin Easter from the early break. And they're just moments in front of the main bunch, led by An Post Chain Reactions. The team organised and run by Sean Kelly. Oh, and a couple of riders have gone down on that corner. Looks like it's caught out one of the Rinkov Adverits cycling team.
One of the Baku riders as well.
And they'll know all about it the next lap. They should have known about it already, so it's clearly a couple of shiny cobbles. Zemliakov, it is off the front of the main peloton, but for how much longer? As out front, those two riders still toiling in the Baku sunshine. Post chain reaction still pushing behind. I think it could well be Ryan Mullen is there or thereabouts as well. They've got about 3 riders on the front. You can be sure Josh Edmondson isn't too far away. No. Zemliakov. A time trialist of note from Kazakhstan, soloing off the front. And as they go up this hill, it becomes all about athletics. His gap is being maintained, if not even extended. Evtushenko and Silverstein still persevering out front on the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan. We're in Baku, the circuit race into the final couple of laps, and this is the scene just off the front of the main bunch. They're about just under a minute and a half behind the 2 riders we saw on screen a moment ago, and looks like the same composition of riders that have decided to clip off the main group, joined by Zemliakov, who's been out front for a little while. So we've got Rusvello and Cycling Academy up the front. We've got Rusvello and Cycling Academy off the front of the bunch as well.
But why are they attacking when they got a man up the front and you know, causing a chase in the peloton and so on?
Every man for himself tactics.
Well, clearly it seems like it, but I just don't get that. What they should be doing instead is actually trying to slow down the peloton and block the road. They know they got a strong man up in the break. Then just chill out. Make sure that you're trying to slow down the peloton as much as you can. Certainly on the narrow sections, then you can, and just get yourself straight into the.
Well, this is Sergei Fursinov. He's sitting 8th overall, 3 minutes and 50 seconds in arrears. He's the best placed rider from the Rusvello squad, so he's obviously got free rein to do what he wants. Maybe they just feel that Evtushenko is coming back sooner or later, so might as well get on with doing the racing. It's an unusual situation, but he's persevering, ploughing on regardless. Primož Roglic in the main peloton, looking relatively comfortable at the moment, in as much as anyone can look relatively comfortable on this climb.
Yeah, but again, he's got 3 minutes and 50 seconds to play too on for this man. So I'm sort of expecting the likes of you know, Synergy Baku will get on the front. Park Hotel will get on. Well, maybe not Park Hotel so much, but and certainly Josh Edmondson should be very keen on making sure that this guy gets brought back, because Josh is currently 5th at 3:49, and then you've got a couple of riders here on 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So for Edmondson, this is very important to bring back, and that's what I mean. You've got 2 strong riders out front here, or certainly 1 strong Rusvello rider out front. What we're having here now with Firsanov going up the road is just basically dragging the whole peloton back up to those guys.
He's providing a very obvious carrot, isn't he, to what is still a very, very big group of riders behind, with En Post Chain Reactions setting the tempo on the front and trying perhaps to set something up for Josh Edmondson next time up the hill. This is the final classified climb of the day up Parliament Prospecti, but they've got to go up it once more, along with that cobble climb in the Old Town. And the combination of that offers opportunities still. Opportunities for these riders, well, they're dwindling at this point. Zilberstein still giving a turn to Evtushenko when he can, but 40 seconds was what we saw on the whiteboard for those riders, so they're coming back. And at this moment, I suspect that Firstenov will have his teammate Evtushenko in sight.
Yeah, it probably will, but
so too will the main bunch have Firstenov in sight, and he's just a carrot there, isn't he?
I just cannot get my head around this.
Interesting tactics being employed by Russ Velo this afternoon. Certainly difficult to predict and to understand. Adrian Mobile, though, seem to be able to handle it at the moment.
Well, I could see this kind of a move on the final lap should there be an opportunity for it, and you know, with that you can probably hold on to the end of the stage as well if you're trying something like this. But to go with a lap and a bit to go, and you still got a teammate up front as well. Yeah, it's very, very questionable in my book of tactics.
Interesting tactics, but Sergei Firstenov is absolutely committed to this one, pushing as hard as he possibly knows how at the moment to try and hold off what is still a very substantial pack of riders led by En Post Chain Reactions. But Firstenov, his advantage, what, can't be much more than 20 seconds at the moment. 40 seconds the last advantage we saw for the two riders up front. They've been up there all day. Alexander Evtushenko of the Russ Velo squad, teammate of the man in picture, and Ido Zilberstein of Israel and the cycling academy of his home nation, also up there. Griffin Easter has been gathered back into the fold. Those were the three riders from the early break. Now it's En Post Chain Reaction continuing to push on the front. Crowds massing in Baku ahead of the finish as we survey the scene over Heydar Aliyev Park. And so many sights, so many banners up in evidence of the inaugural European Games, which Baku is playing host to next month. Athletes, teams and officials will be assembling very shortly. Well, Zilberstein, we said he was only given the occasional turn to Evtushenko, but he's looking stronger and stronger, and we really have to pay tribute to his efforts. Behind, it's Firstenov. 32 years of age now. He's won a lot of stage races through his time. And the Vuelta Comunidad de Madrid in 2012, the Grand Prix of Adygea in 2015, Tour of Kafkaz 2014, Boucle d'Artois in 2009. Make a list. He's got a very, very strong palmarès in terms of winning races at this level, GC. So this is, he's got the experience.
Yeah, definitely. We've also seen that František Zizir is getting up onto the front of the peloton here with the En Post riders and starting to do some work as well, because Zizir is 7th on GC, and obviously with Firstenov going up the road here now, that's jeopardizing his overall position.
So František Zizir defending his position in the overall standings. Yeah, Firstenov sitting 8th overall as we get the...
Well, if Russ Velo's tactics here now is right, then Evtushenko at this point need to back off the front here, go back and get his teammate, put everything he's got into it for as long as he possibly can, and then go. It's only 13 seconds, I think, between...
Yeah, between the two up front and this man behind.
And then a further 20 seconds back, so...
Will Evtushenko be minded to forget about his own personal ambitions and think about his rider behind, as we see on post chain reactions have strength and depth there, and have Josh Edmondson. Oh, and look at who it is.
I think
going for last man standing. Ido Zilberstein decides to.
I think he's just having Evtuchenko's just having a look around to see what's happening with his teammate. He's obviously been told that something is happening. He's obviously seen the board as well that he's got a teammate behind him, and he's trying to work out what the situation is and what the best game plan is going to be for him, because I think he'd be slightly confused at this point in terms of, yeah, hang on a minute, I've been out here all day and I have had a good gap, so why are they all of a sudden riding on me and trying to bring me back? So yeah, he needs to back off here now and go and get his teammate.
So first enough, freewheeling for as long as he possibly dares. 13 seconds, the distance he has to make up to this man, Evtushenko. Zilberstein pushing hard on the front, wondering what to do. Yeah, so somewhere between 13 and 20 seconds. It's fluctuating. We're getting conflicting reports, but there's certainly not much between them. They can see it, so they know exactly what's involved. Pretty impressive out by An Post to get 4 riders to the fore at this point. What can they do about getting Josh Edmondson into position? The man from Leeds in Yorkshire.
Well, I think they just want to try and protect Josh's positions as it is. There isn't an awful lot they can really do. You know, Josh is at 3:49, and then the next best rider is Chris Horner, who's currently 4th, but he's only 34 seconds down. So there is
Could it be that An Post are thinking about setting something up for Ryan Mullen for a late attack, or maybe Adis Kropis just trying to get organised for the sprint? You'd imagine it's all about Josh Edmondson, but this, like you say, it's going to be very difficult for him to make it up even one position on overall, given the. But maybe he's just a great opportunity for stage honours. That's probably the real.
Well, I think that the first option, first thing is to look after the GC, make sure that Josh gets over this next climb in a good position. When you get over that climb, then let's have a look and see who we got still in there, who's you know, who's going good and who's what we can actually do. And at that point, you start playing for stage honours. But GC first, and then the stage after.
Zilberstein still has a few bike lengths advantage over Evtushenko. Doesn't know whether to ride back to him or not. And it looks we've got a very, very interesting situation where we've got 3 individual time trials in operation off the front of a peloton by about, what, 20 seconds. So it's every man for himself, as we say. It's more like a junior race, this, but entertaining for all that. Zilberstein pushing hard. He's doing exactly what he ought to do. Evtushenko should probably at this point have throttled back and just wait for his teammate.
I'm sorry, but this is the exact situation that you do need the race radio from the team manager to be able to tell these guys that this is not right, do this instead. You can't, you know.
Should they not already know, especially a man like Firsanov, who's been around a long time?
After the stage, it's difficult to kind of have a chat about things, and this clearly could have been done in a much better way and guide these riders to understand what they should do.
Interesting tactics being employed by Russ Velo, and no doubt Sergei Honchar will have something to say afterwards. Zilberstein's pushing to be last man standing from the 3-man break. Looks like he's going to manage to make it to the bell, hanging on in front of the peloton, and that constitutes a proud moment for him. It's been a brave effort. The early break is not going to be successful 2 days in a row in the Tour of Azerbaijan, but he is at least going to be the first man to hear the bell. So now just 13.8 kilometers remaining. An Post chain reaction leading them through. Synergy Baku, the local team, in their wheels. Adria Mobil in line astern behind them, with the overall race leader Primož Roglic looking strong.
It's an 8-second gap there between the 2 Russ Velo riders and the peloton.
And now they finally knit it up. As Evtushenko, oh no, it's actually Firsanov that rides up to Zilberstein. So
I don't think they're going to be hanging out up there for too much longer, looking at the peloton and the way that they are pressing on.
Zilberstein's done. Firstenov puts a bit of distance between himself and the two riders who were in the early break, so he's not going to get much of a help from them. The Homme Post Chain Reactions squad are assisting each other in their efforts to set a vicious tempo. Evtushenko back into the bunch. He's feeling his legs at the moment. It's been a great effort from him. Strong man off the break. And clearly a man with a big future. Firstenov looks over his shoulder, realizes, well, he realizes two things. One thing is that Evtushenko's gone. The other thing is, here come the bunch. Brave effort, but little reward. Questionable tactics. But Firstenov felt he had to try something.
Yeah, fair play. You know, you've got to take your hat off to him for trying. He's actually the only one out of the guys so far who's actually tried something. But you know, I think it would have been better to wait for the final lap to make that kind of an effort. He clearly had some good legs on him. Wait for the final climb and give it a go there. But we're setting this up now to be potentially very interesting final climb. Certainly with the likes of Homme Post now driving on, they're very keen on setting something up for the stage. And is that going to be for Edmondson to attack, or is it going to be for a sprint?
Well, they've had a pretty good race so far. A stage win courtesy of Josh Edmondson on day 3. And then that third place finish for Conradon yesterday. Idus Kropus 9th across the line. 4th in the bunch sprint. Oh, and as they hit the cobbles, you get an indication of just how little grip there is in there. You really put the power down. The traction is difficult to harness under wheel as Synergy Baku really pushing on.
Is that the tricky corner?
Yeah, is that the tricky little right hand? We safely through it, and Airgas Safeway rider behind. Is it Horner? Not so
Horner
sure
is in the second wheel there of the Airgas riders, second of the, well, third on the rider on the road.
First 3 safely through. First main body of the peloton making it through safely. They've all figured out how to ride that corner, with having seen it a couple of times. And now the attack's coming. Here comes Chris Horner. And so too Jasper Öcalan, I'll be bound, is also making his presence felt on the front. Öcalan, 25 years of age today. The distinctive features as well of Chris Horner from Airgas Safeway goes to the front. All seems relatively cool, calm and collected. And look at the way the overall race leader, Primož Roglič, is just motorbiking his way back up through the riders. But is he going to get there in time? This is a danger. Well, he's managed to latch onto a group of, what, 4 or 5 riders, led by the man sitting 4th overall, 34 seconds behind Primož Roglič. So he really needs to press on this hill and perhaps the next one if he's to have any chance of overhauling the overall race leader. Primož Roglič, as Chris Horner has a little look over his shoulder, realizes that he's joined by riders, but he has separated Roglič from his teammates, so perhaps worth persevering with this for a little while. Jasper Öcalan is encouraged to have a go, and he starts to put in a serious dig. Roglič, though, looks like he's covered this one.
Yeah, he's definitely done a very, very impressive ride there to get back up onto the wheel of his main rivals. But I do feel that the final threat is not over just yet.
So now 10 kilometers remaining in the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan 2015, as the riders have made their way up the penultimate climb of the day. They've got another little 1,500-meter stretch that offers opportunities for stage honours and perhaps to just shake up the overall classification, as riders are coming through with big gaps between them, 2s and 3s, as they scrabble to get back onto the wheel of the riders in front. How big is the main bunch going to be as they go to the line? Probably substantial, but certainly not as big as it was when they set off this morning.
Yeah, quite like to see the front of the race here now to see what's going on, who's pressing on.
Little replay of just how tricky that corner is, but Airgas Safeway rider behind just managing to safely negotiate it. Chris Horner sitting 3rd wheel, left enough of a gap and managed to get through there without too much difficulty. So a couple of Airgas Safeway riders, a couple of riders from Team Valkenburg, And now the lead group, what, not much more than 10 riders with 10 kilometers remaining. How many more are going to be able to join in? Synergy Baku on the attack inside the final 10 kilometers. How dearly they would love to come home with a victory on the final day of their home race.
They certainly would, and with that being Mate Mugerli as well, he's got an opportunity to move up on GC as well. He's on the same time as Jasper Åkerlund.
And who's the one that's got to chase it? It's Primoz Roglic, the overall race leader. He's left isolated now. His Adria Mobil squad have done absolutely fantastic work
What's
this
the attack coming out from Chris Horner, though?
Yeah, Chris Horner's shaping up, sitting third wheel. Here he comes. It was predicted by Magnus Backstedt. It was predicted by pretty much everyone else. And it looks like it's just one of those little leg tests. Doesn't look like a full-blooded attack. Just trying to see what sort of danger he's put Primoz Roglic into. And Jasper Åkerlund sitting second overall on the same time as Chris Horner, 34 seconds behind the man sitting third wheel here in the overall race leader's jersey in blue. And it's an opportunistic attack from one of the riders from the Kazakh national team, and the overall contenders are not going to be interested in that, but I think they do need to put the pressure on for a little, because well, they need to make the most of this hill if they're going to get the gap they need to overhaul Primoz Roglic.
Yeah, I think that opportunity is just about gone here.
Maybe looking at stage honours, and riders are starting to clip back in and get back into contention.
Looks like Unpost has actually missed out on this one now after riding so hard for that final lap.
Disappointment for Unpost Chain Reaction. Stage win, third place finish, and really tried to perhaps set up Josh Edmondson, but it looks like he's to the fore in the chasing group. But this group of 10 riders led by Mate Mugerli, and then chasing this lone rider from the Kazakh national squad. Well, they had Zemlyakov, who was pushing hard a little early on. Their best placed rider is Shushamon, Alexander Shushamon, 11th overall. 3 minutes and 56 seconds back. There are two Kazakh national riders have made this split, and I'm wondering whether not the 10 riders behind are going to be joined by the next group on the road that are chasing, because there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of aggression in that group behind, is there?
No, it certainly doesn't. 8.8 kilometers to go as well. It's going to be an interesting final here. Are they going to be able to stay away?
Shushamon it is indeed, the best placed rider from the Kazakh national team. 11th overall, 3 minutes and 56, and a great opportunity for him to vault up to third over to fifth, I think. Josh Edmondson's 5th overall could well be under threat as we see Valkenburg represented.
Firsanov is going away again with Åkerlund.
Jasper Åkerlund sitting 2nd overall. Sergei Firsanov hasn't run out of breakfast yet. Was that Josh Edmondson at the front of the chasing group? There's just not enough activity in that group behind, so there's every chance, I think, that Shushamon could well hang on at least to the top of the hill.
Well,
and Åkerlund got to be able to get over to him, so this is an interesting development. Firsanov looking to protect and perhaps enhance his general classification position, is also in with an opportunity to take something here, and they're just looking at each other behind as the group are coming up. 8 kilometers remaining.
Well, Chris Horner was just telling the Adria Mobil riders that look, these guys are actually a bit on the dangerous side, and certainly Åkerlund here is gone up the road. He's only 34 seconds down, so it's up now to Roglic and his teammates to press on.
Absolutely flat chat. Firsanov grappling his way back onto the wheel of the 25-year-old Dutchman Jasper Åkerlund of Team Valkenburg, who looks over his shoulder to see that he's still hanging on to this advantage. Meanwhile, Primoz Roglic is being towed back up to those 3 riders. Chris Horner looking over his shoulder. Surely no opportunity for a late attack from a man who's predominantly a climber. Things are looking good for Primoz Roglic, but he does need to give a hand himself in the chase.
Big group now.
Yeah, it's a much bigger group. That second group on the road has managed to knit itself back up with the leading group. So A couple of riders from On Post Chain Reactions will be relieved about that. Primarily, of course, Josh Edmondson. We believe he's managed to make it in there. František Ceesar, sitting 7th overall, is also safely back in the fold. That'll protect his 7th place overall. But having said that, Sergei Firsinov is level on time with Ceesar, has an opportunity to move up. He's the man sitting 2nd here in the red jersey, the Russian with the Rus Velo squad, rolling through to the front, followed by Alexander Schuschmann of the Kazakh national team. And 3rd in line, representing the Netherlands and Team Valkenburg in the yellow, is Jasper Ukkelen, sitting 2nd overall. There's confirmation of the lead group. What's their advantage? It's a narrow one. We've just 8 kilometers remaining in Tour of Azerbaijan.
Ukkelen just having a quick look around to see is it worth persevering with this one, but I got to tell you, you got to go just ride and ride and ride until you got nothing left to ride with.
Yeah, he's going to need these 2 riders. They're going to have to ride together. Surely they don't have what it takes to go solo.
Well, if it was me in Ukkelen's shoes here now, I would just basically get on the front and just take turns like you've never taken them before.
Stage honour's not of interest to him.
Not of interest of any sort whatsoever. It's got 3 minutes and 3 minutes and 20 seconds effectively down to the 2 riders on his wheel in terms of general classification. So all he needs to worry about is driving, trying to get as much time as he possibly can on the guys behind him. If these 2 guys are happy to take a turn, fantastic, but you should not think about asking them for a turn. Flick with your elbow. If they come through, great. If they don't, then just keep on going.
But he gives a flick. He gets the assistance of Sergei Firsinov, and they've put some daylight between themselves and the group behind, and it is just 2 riders that are chasing, so it's 3 against 2 at the moment. That's the situation as it prevails. 9 seconds the advantage. Well, he needs quite a bit more than that. 34 seconds between the man in blue and the man in yellow up front going into today's final stage. And the 2 riders, the other 2 riders, of course, have an opportunity to move up on general classification. But more importantly, of course, for them, there's a great chance of stage honours.
Yeah, I mean, they can't really move an awful lot up on the general classification, these two riders. But, you know, they can certainly put themselves just behind, you know, Chris Horner. So 5th and 6th is up for grabs.
5th's on offer, and you wonder if Josh Edmondson might be minded to just move up and perhaps give a dig out. Doesn't look as if he's that concerned about it at the moment. Maybe he's thinking about a late solo attack if they manage to tow back the 3 riders. He wouldn't be the only one thinking that in here. They're going to leave it up to those 2 riders on the front of the bunch, and plenty of riders that would like to get across that 11-second gap now. So it's starting to extend as the flick of the elbow comes from Primož Roglič, who might be getting a little bit concerned.
Well, no doubt is he going to be concerned, because it's a final very big charge from these 3 riders, and 11 seconds is I mean, it doesn't take a lot to lose a bit more.
Doesn't take a lot indeed, and there's nothing being held back by all 3 riders here, as we see Firsinov burying his head over the stem, his shoulders rocking. It's all going into the pedals as much as he possibly can. Inside 5 kilometers to go.
You just wonder, though, if Firsinov had saved the legs that he used on the last attack that he did on the penultimate lap. Put all of that in here instead. Could he have had a bit more to ride with?
Radoslav Regina doing superb work for the overall race leader, Primož Roglič. They're wearing yellow dossards. They're the leading team. They've had 2 stage victories so far this week. They've got the points wrapped up. Have they got the blue jersey wrapped up? Still in doubt, because up front in the yellow of Team Valkenburg and the Netherlands, it's his birthday today. Could he celebrate his 25th birthday with overall success in the Tour of Azerbaijan? Looks like a tall order, but don't rule it out, because the gap is going up between these 3 riders and the 2 riders that are chasing. I say there's 2 riders chasing. This group must be 30 in there at the moment. Still, it's just 10 seconds between them, so it's holding steady at the moment with 5 kilometers remaining. It's going to be tough, but I'll tell you what, Ukkelen is not holding anything back. Primož Roglič on the front. He's having to do the work. Well,
Roglič is definitely having to take turns, and he's now getting some help from one of the Airgas riders. But Roglič is taking such a hard turn, and his teammate is struggling to hold the wheel.
Superb work being done by Primoz Roglic. Interesting that Airgas Safeway have decided to put a rider in there. I'm not exactly sure what Chris Horner feels he's protecting. He's actually behind, even though he's level on time with Öcalan. Maybe he feels that they have a chance of stage honours. Maybe there's a couple of them in there. And it's coming down, 8 seconds, so another couple of seconds shaved off. And inside the final 2.5 kilometres, will these three riders battle out for stage honours? This is now becoming increasingly the main consideration. Öcalan will battle all the way to the line. All three riders will push as hard as they know how, because they're trying to stay out front of this group behind. Primoz Roglic is absolutely flat out. He's assisted by his Adria Mogul team from Slovenia. That's Regina. He's doing a superb work, and Öcalan
is just putting everything he has into this, and it isn't a big
Roglic
big gap.
is dropping the whole group the way things are going, because Regina, and indeed that rider from was it Horner actually now, has moved up onto the wheel.
Well, Roglic doesn't really have to worry about where he finishes in this group. He just needs to be on the same time as everyone else, and with that, you know, it's up to him to try and close the gap.
Well, look at the way that Roglic has lined out this group. You might have been of the mind that they were all just sitting in and thinking about the sprint. Well, there's a few riders that really have achy legs in there and not finding it that easy to stay there at all, because Primoz Roglic is absolutely flying. Could well be towing them back up. 1,400 metres remaining as Fursanov pushes on as best he can, assisted by Shushamon of Kazakhstan and the man sitting second overall, Jasper Öcalan. Will they manage to hang on? Marco Kump, of course, is sitting in the group behind. So Roglic, has he managed to make it on? I'm not. Yeah, the green jersey could well be in there, and a great chance of another stage.
Well, I haven't seen Kump in there, but if he is, then that could be a reason why Roglic is now taking such a big turn.
It would certainly be a very generous thing to do, as now we see riders starting to clip off the front, trying to...
Mugli.
Yes, the man sitting third overall, Maciej Mugli, the national champion of Slovenia, former teammate of Primoz Roglic, now with the local Synergy Baku squad. And I don't think he's managed to establish enough of an advantage. These three riders are going to be caught. We're well inside the final kilometre of the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan, and they're winding up for the big sprint as Fursanov battles to try and stay clear. Shushamon battles to try and get his wheel. Öcalan realises that the game is up, and those two riders just have a narrow advantage through the last couple of turns. Inside the final 500 metres, Fursanov piling it on. Will he be able to hang on? Because Mugli looks over his shoulder for a bit of assistance. Primoz Roglic is not going to do it. Can these two riders hang on? Shushamon battling to get into the wheel of Fursanov. Fursanov battling to hang on in front of the bunch behind. It's going to be a blanket finish. I tell you, Shushamon isn't going to get there, or is he? Fursanov is dying a million deaths. He's inside the final 300 metres. Will he hang on? Fursanov, amazing power all the way to the line. Inside the final 50 metres, inside the final 25. Fursanov gets it ahead of Shushamon, and would you believe it, Maciej Mugli hung on for third place. So that was just riders absolutely lined out, and it didn't seem as if anyone was able to launch a sprint, because they gave absolutely everything. It was a wonderful finale. Superb effort. And, well, he might bless himself, because that was a fantastic effort from Fursanov, who refused to give in and absolutely willed himself to the line. Amazing power generated. And he takes a famous victory on the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan. Primoz Roglic hangs on to his overall lead. So no change in the overall battle. And the overall standings after a fine battle over the last couple of laps. And it's a great circuit, isn't it? And it really wound up to a big conclusion. Roglic accepts the congratulations of his team. No final stage victory, but it's been a week of domination for Adria Mogul. They take a couple of stage wins, they take overall honours, they take the points competition. And Fursanov looks like he could well have moved up overall, Magnus.
Depends on what the commissaires are saying in terms of the gap, if there was enough of a gap between them or not. And to me, that's a good second or two, and I think that's why Mugli is really trying so hard to catch back on, is to make sure, because Mugli is at 3:49 and Fursanov is at 3:50. So was there a second between those guys there?
I'd put a second in there.
I'd put a second in there, if not two.
Mugerli, yeah. And that's all there was between them.
Maybe 1 second, actually.
Did he need two? Yeah.
Well, he needs one to get on equal terms with Mugerli. No, sorry, I'm completely mistaken in misdoing this.
Edmondson, yeah.
Edmondson, I was thinking, yeah.
No doubt about the man who got the stage honours. It was Firsinov of Russ Velo. They're out front all day in the early break. We questioned their tactics, but he held on for the stage win. Amazing. Interesting tactics employed by Russ Velo, but certainly kept us guessing, kept everyone guessing. There's the confirmation of the stage success. They're putting him second between Sergei Firsinov of Russ Velo, Shushman in second on the same time. Matthew Mugerli a second behind. Caesar gets up for fourth on the stage. Chris Horner well to the fore, but no change overall. So we wait for general classification to be confirmed. So Sergei Firsinov.
It's going to come down to the stage placings then for the fight of the second place between Okelun and Mugerli.
Of course, yes, they were locked on time. The second, third, and fourth riders, 34 seconds back. It's all about adding up the stage placing across the 5 stages. And nice finish for Mugerli, though. So
yeah.
Well, there's confirmation. Primoz Roglic takes the 4th Tour of Azerbaijan by 34 seconds from Jasper Okelun, who hung on to that position. Matthew Mugerli finishes 3rd. Chris Horner just off the podium in 4th, level on time. Firsinov vaults up to 5th, as we thought he might do. Josh Edmondson slips one for Sean Kelly's squad. But great celebrations for Primoz Roglic, a man that we're going to see a lot more of, I think, in world cycling. Former ski jumper, very impressive talent transfer. He's found his true métier, I think. Former Olympian as a ski jumper, and a man who's making a name for himself in world cycling. Primoz Roglic gets the overall success. Sergei Firsinov gets the final stage honours for the Russ Velo squad. We've had a great week. That's it from the final stage of Tour of Azerbaijan. From myself and Magnus Backstedt, it's goodbye for now.